whether it's working or not, because yeah, now it's streaming. I can see it here. Perfect. So the link is in there. Yeah, I'm just going to start and welcome everyone. It's very nice that we meet again quite soon. I think it's been 6 or 7 weeks and a lot of work and yeah, lots to do for all of us. I'm welcoming you on behalf of the PPT, of all the partners of the Tribunal and the IPPW. And I want to share the program for tonight. I hope you can see it. Exactly, it's maybe a little small, but I'm going to explain what we're going to do. Tonight we are meeting here at this public forum to listen to the presentation of the verdict by the jurors of the Berlin hearing. From the 23rd to 25th of October, we had the Permanent People Tribunal on the human rights of health of migrants and refugee people in Berlin and virtual, so many of us already then could only join via Zoom or anything else. And yeah, we're going to start in a few seconds with a short video summing up about the Berlin hearing. And then today we're going to hear the verdict of the jurors. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to it. And afterwards, in the second half, we're going to focus a little bit on the future perspectives of these tribunal and the building of a global pact.
Oui. No hearing disappeared.
Just a moment, maybe it's coming.
Oh.
We have a very short video.
Good evening, Luciana. I think all of those of the tribunal are here. Hi, Teresa.
So we are still waiting for.
We seem to be, yeah. It's.
The host is lost. It says the host is lost. So we are waiting for the host to come back.
Okay.
Oh, that's from Marina.
I'm not sure what's the problem now.
I'm back now. I had some, I don't know, connectivity issues. Sorry, did someone take over in the meantime?
No, it should now be the video, Carlotta.
Ah, yeah, perfect. Thank you. No,
Is it coming now?
I don't know. I'm not doing it.
Should be Carlos. Yeah. Mario or Carlos?
Mario, I think.
Mario from the monitor. Who does the monitor?
Hörni. Hello.
Yes, do you want me to share the video now?
Yes, 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 Mario.
We are all migrants and refugees. Together we reclaim human rights for all people. To migrate and seek asylum is a human right. The Permanent People's Tribunal, PPT 45th session on the violations with impunity of the human rights of migrant and refugee peoples was launched in Barcelona in July 2017. Since its launch in 2017, the PPT hearings were held in Palermo, Paris, Barcelona, London, Brussels, and Berlin. This 45th session and its hearings have been co-convened and organized by more than 500 migrant and refugee organizations, together with social movements, networks, and solidarity organizations. The PPT is a process that is being built from below, with the people most involved and most directly affected. The overall goal is to strengthen the role of migrant and refugee peoples and the organizations as key protagonists and social actors in the articulation of the conjuncture, the naming of the violations of the human rights, and in proposing alternatives. In the PPT process, migrant and refugee movements expand and develop new alliances with other social movements and related sectors, such as trade unions, women, human rights, solidarity networks, and engaged academia. This PPT session is being organized within the framework of the indictment developed for the launch in Barcelona, based on an analysis of the current economic and political conjuncture globally, as well as in Europe, and drawn from the testimonies and lived experiences of migrant and refugee peoples. 4 key pillars and stages in the migration journey are identified. 1. Root causes, forced displacements and out-migration. This is linked to several structural causes: land grabs, loss of livelihoods, global restructuring of labor, corporate extraction of resources, the destruction of the environment, climate change, and war. 2. Dangerous journeys of transit and closure of legal routes leading to mass deaths. In those journeys, on the seas and the deserts, rescue is prohibited and has resulted in thousands of deaths. The policy of pushback preventing people to reach Europe also continues to cause unnecessary loss of life. People who are injured are not assisted and are abandoned. 3. Border regimes that are militarized and criminalized. Places without rights are created by externalizing and militarizing borders, resulting in the criminalization of people on the move and those who assist them in solidarity. People who reach Europe are placed in camps, where living conditions are totally inhuman. 4. Fortress Europe. Living and working conditions that are part of a hostile environment result in intensifying levels of racism, xenophobia, and Islamophobia, eroding the possibility of equal rights. Authoritarian and racist political parties are on the rise in several countries. They focus blame for failures of the economy on migrants and refugees, and some sections of European citizens see them as the cause of unemployment and insecurity. During the PPT hearing on the right to health of migrants and refugees in Berlin in October 23 to 25, there was also a specific panel on the European Commission European Union Pact on Migration and Asylum. We launched a global pact of solidarity for the rights of migrant and refugee people. This is our response to the EU Pact and to the global politics which turns migration and asylum into criminal acts and migrants and refugees into potential criminals. The Moria camp on Lesbos Island was still smoldering from its devastating fire when the EU Pact was published in September. We refuse this pact and its necropolitics of racist exclusion. We call for an end to camps, detention and borders, and inhuman labor and living conditions. We reach out globally to all those who believe that to migrate or seek asylum is not a crime. It is a human right. This EU Pact includes more references to the no right to enter or stay than to human rights, and uses repeatedly the idea of a smooth and seamless procedure leading to fast return, and reinforcing the strategy of a fortress Europe. This EU Pact also proposes a reinforced Frontex and quicker selection procedures and return mechanisms to prevent people to set foot in Europe. Essentially, it is a pact of denial of fundamental human rights, repression at borders, and prevention of rescue at sea. For refugees and migrants, there are no rights and not even solidarity. Our People's Global Pact of Solidarity proposes to restore the primacy of the human rights of individuals and peoples over the benefits and interests of states, oligarchies and transnationals, and guaranteeing multilateralism and democracy in the United Nations. Promote self-determination, democracy, food sovereignty, and gender justice, making possible the construction of sustainable, supportive, and fair local economies that guarantee the populations the right to live in dignity in their territories without being forced into any kind of displacement. Guarantee the right to free movement of all people, promoting regional and international cooperation, to establish public policies that ensure it and protect those who have chosen to migrate from any violation of their rights in any part of the world, especially women, children, and refugees for political, economic, climatic, and social reasons. Raise your voice and reclaim human rights for all people. It is not a crime to migrate and seek refuge. It is a human right. Let us together build the Global Pact of Solidarity.
Thank you very much for the video. So yeah, I hope we all, nothing can replace the whole weekend we had, but I hope, you get a little idea what we talked about, those of you who missed us in the October weekend. And I'm going to hand over now to Jana and Simona, who are going to lead through the presentation of the verdict of the jurors.
Carlotta, first we will have Berhani, who will present the poem of Maya Angelou. So Berhani, I will introduce Berhani. Berhani is living in Amsterdam, is a graduate student of Foundation Academy of Amsterdam on Integrated Human Rights, and also studying global studies. He has been in the Netherlands for 5 years, has been in and out of asylum. But in all of that, he still was able to work on his own developments. And after he graduated, he cited this poem, and therefore I asked him again to cite this poem to all the participants today. So Berhani, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. And first of all, I would like to give appreciation and my grateful to you guys for the well doing of your effort. What you are doing is a nice forum and really should be appreciated and respected. So for me, initially, what does it mean, refugee? Because this is for me is my life, my future, my story. So one of the issue we are going to pick up in this transitional migrant platform, so should be respected. Further, I will go. I don't like to take much time. I will go directly to the point. I will start. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may throw me in the very dirt, but still, like the dust, I will rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just is because I walk as if I have oils pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides. Just like hopes springing high, still I will rise. Do you want to see me broken heart, bowed head, lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like tears, drop weakened by sorrow's cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I love. As if I have the gold miners digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I will rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Does it come as a surprise? As if I had diamonds at the meeting of my thighs, out of the hut of the history shames, I will rise. I will rise. Up from a past that rooted in the pain, I will rise. A black oceans, leaping and wide, wheeling and swilling, I bear in the tide. I will rise. Leaving behind the night of terror and fear, I will rise. Into daybreak that miraculously clears, I will rise. Bring the gift that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream, the slave, so naturally still rise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Berhani, for that citation. So, Simona, I give the word to you.
I will speak in Spanish for the interpreters. And I think that you could read the message from Carlota about the possibility to choose the language. You have a bottom on the right. And so I will go on in Spanish. Buenas tardes a todos y gracias a todas las organizaciones participantes. Esta primera parte va a ser dedicada a la presentación del veredicto del juicio del Tribunal Permanente de los Pueblos que le corresponde a esta audiencia temática sobre el derecho humano a la salud que se ha realizado a finales de octubre en Berlín. Vamos a poder contar sobre la presencia de algunos representantes del jurado. Philippe Texier, que es presidente del tribunal, Luciana Castellina, que es presidenta del jurado, Teresa Almeida Cravo, que es miembro del tribunal y de la Universidad de Coimbra, y Marina Forti, periodista italiana y miembro también del tribunal. Veo también que está presente Domenico Gallo, magistrado, y quizás él quiera añadir algo después de todas las presentaciones que se van a realizar enseguida. Y como tenemos muy poco tiempo, voy a dar la palabra a Gianni Tognoni, secretario general del Tribunal Permanente de los Pueblos, que nos va a restituir en un tiempo muy breve, porque cada uno tiene que hablar 6 minutos y no máximo. Yo voy a estar aquí para controlar el tiempo, y Gianni nos va a restituir un poco el contexto general de toda la sesión sobre migración desarrollada desde 2017 hasta hoy.
Thanks a lot, Simona, for this introduction. I think that because of the very good presentation and introduction which has been presented before, we could leave aside various details about the organization of the tribunal, and I would like to concentrate on a few points which could better introduce the specificity of this session. The first point, I think, is the fact that this session is a conclusion of a long journey of the tribunal with the support of the people of the migrant, first of all. And I think that the fact of concluding this journey in Germany, it will be discussed later, is important because it was in fact planned with also the organizer as a place which was not simply out of the other towns where we have held sessions, but was and is a model case of the politics, or how the politics should be really protagonist of the history of the migrants, while in fact along those years, the politics has been a protagonist with its absence or its denial of the problem. And the fact of having the tribunal sitting in Germany was in that sense a symbolic and strong invitation to have this problem in the agenda of the European policy. The second point for this session is that the session was convened by an historical group which coordinated many groups, the International Physicians of Prevention of Nuclear War. This group is a group of medical doctors. I am also a personally medical doctor and founder of that organization. It's interesting that at the very center of the nuclear crisis is back. It was felt that the right to life and health could be considered really the most proximal right which could be understood by people. And in that sense, doctors were allied in saying, look, if you imagine that we could save something of the nuclear disaster, forget it. Once you decide for the annihilation, we cannot do anything. And in that sense, the healthcare rights, or the right to healthcare, is now symbolically for the capacity of our countries to be proximal to the people, not simply with principle, but with a real care. And in that sense, the care provided or not provided to the migrant, care in the comprehensive point of view, has been assumed as an important point of observation to judge really what is the capacity of recognizing the identity of migrants as human beings and not simply as those who are leaving other countries. And last point, I think that is important, I leave aside other points, the fact of the never, I think, and I followed all the session at the tribunal, never, I think, the qualification of permanent has been so significant as in this journey with the migrants. It was established, the permanent tribunal, as a permanent need of being monitoring the capacity of violating the international rights and the national or human rights, which was needing really somebody who could be always present in that sense. And this presence over the 3 or 4 years has been the only possibility of providing a permanent visibility to the migrants and refugees who have been denied and who disappeared even more now with the COVID as protagonists of history. And on the other side, it has been important to confront and not to accept the permanent indifference of the political powers with respect to the rights of migrants. The first tribunal was called in order to avoid the crime of silence. In this sense, we are here and the migrants come present in order to denounce really the permanence of the silence, which becomes a crime of the European institution and of the national policy of the group. In this sense, this judgment is really one important and critical expression of the role of the Permanent People Tribunal to be a tribunal which is not for or on people, is a tribunal of people. Peoples are the judges, despite their qualification as victims. They are, with their presence, with their life and death, the real judges of the behaviors of the powers, be them economics or political or whatever. The subjects of rights are humans and they cannot be denied as human subjects. That has been the spirit of the preparation of this session. The session has been developed in very difficult conditions because of this mix of remote and physical presence. We thank our German co-organizer of the tribunal, and as usually the judgment of the tribunal are organized around facts in order to be clearly with roots in the real experience of the victims, on the other side on the general qualification, and then in a formulation of a judgment and recommendation. I think that now, I don't know whether
Gianni. Sí, gracias sobre todo para destacar la función específica que el tribunal ha tenido en esta larga sesión y también para adelantar un poco cómo hemos repartido las presentaciones de hoy que corresponden un poco al contenido de la sentencia que ya ha sido distribuida y que cada organización debe haber recibido. Y doy la palabra a Marina Forti, que nos va a hablar, nos brinda una síntesis de los hechos considerados por el TPP. Gracias por considerar el tiempo, Marina.
Seguro. Yes, thank you. And during the Berlin hearing, this jury heard really appalling testimonies on how migrant and refugee people are routinely denied their fundamental rights. And first of all, the right to respect and to a dignified life. We heard witnesses from Germany, Greece, the Netherlands, Spain, and the United Kingdom. We heard, first of all, how the precariousness of one person's legal status can lead to even basic rights being suppressed. From overcrowded transit camp in Lesbos in Greece to temporary shelter for refugees in Germany, or to sweet shop where migrant toys in Britain or Spain or everywhere. We heard that migrant and refugees people are living in constant uncertainty of their rights. their future. And they are confronted sometimes with blatant racism, as we have been told, sometimes with more subtle mechanism of discrimination, with the brutality of the police very often, or with the routine indifference and disregard of an institutional machine. These policies, as one witness said, these policies are designed to push people to leave, to go away, just by making the social environment increasingly hostile to them. This is one point. And this is true in many, I would say in most European countries. Witnesses told us, for instance, that thousands of people in Germany are in fact denied access to basic health care because they lack resident status or a private insurance. That is, even the basic health services that are in theory available to a person undergoing the procedure for asylum, for protection, can be in fact very difficult to access because, as we have been told, migrants are in fact discriminated upon in the public health services. We received really a grim picture of life for refugees in Germany. For instance, in the case of migrant and refugees people with disabilities, when care is not available to them. Also, there is little help for those who suffer of mental health problem, which, by the way, often stems from the traumas of war or from violence and torture experienced during the flight to Europe. Life can be especially tough for those living in overcrowded refugees camp in Germany, the lager where migrants spend months or even a year or more waiting for their asylum procedure being sorted through. And we heard of a camp, for instance, located in an old barrack in the former east and west border, an isolated place. We were told with only a nurse to take care of everyone. We were told of aggressions within a camp. The case of a 5-year-old girl being aggressed in her own room where she lives with her family. People, we were told of people feeling treated as if they were criminals. Other testimonies spoke of the anxiety of a life spent in waiting, living in the constant fear of deportation, or living idle, just people not being allowed to go to school or to work or to do anything while their legal status is being examined. Some described the daily racism experienced by many Black migrants in German cities, but that could be said of most European countries. Women voices are particularly missing. We have been told by social workers how sometimes migrant women are just too scared to talk about issues related to personal health or family planning or mental health, personal issues. Some have suffered traumatic experiences, violence and harassment, yet many struggle to find help. And language is not the only obstacle. As many witnesses said, some doctors and nurses may be kind with them, but many just do not care to understand what is behind a woman's pain or what is behind her silence. As one said, in their experience, a woman's suffering is normal, but here in Europe, it shouldn't be normal. So many problems are aggravated when it comes to LGBTIQ migrants and refugees. Also, many testimonies from Germany highlighted the widespread police brutality, and that has been said again and again. We were told of people deported in spite of, for instance, mental or physical problems, provided the doctor says that he or she is fit to fly, which raises serious deontological questions. Witnesses from...
Marina, por favor, llega a una conclusión.
Sí. Well, all the problems we have been described may be particularly of one country or the other, the Lesbos camp in Greece, etc. But all these are not either Greek story or German stories or UK stories, etc. All these are European stories, because it is the outcome of European policies, as we have been told, that are keeping newcomers in few hotspots. These are the facts that have been submitted, how the criminalization of the those providing assistance to migrants and refugees are always are themselves criminalized very often, and this is also all this is part of a deliberate policy of not saving life, of avoiding any scrutiny, and this is what have been told during the tribunal.
Gracias, Marina, también por aceptar esta tarea tan difícil de sintetizar todos los hechos en pocos minutos. Claramente, todos tenéis digamos, una representación de los hechos mucho más detallada en la sentencia del tribunal. Doy la palabra a Teresa Almeida Cravo, de la Universidad de Coimbra, que nos va a ofrecer un comentario que califica los hechos en consideración también del contexto específico de Alemania. Gracias, Teresa.
Muchas gracias, Simona. It is hardly necessary to state, after Marina Forti's account of the daily indignities perpetrated against migrants and refugees, how truly appalling and yet unsurprising these testimonies are. One should nonetheless take the time to hear their voices, absorb their stories, and derive meaning from them. The cumulative shock of the detailed account of the microaggressions suffered by migrants in the hands of those responsible for their journeys has a value in itself. It tells us three things. First, that the narrative we have been apprised of is no exception, it is the rule. In Berlin, as in all past PPT sessions on the violations of the rights of migrants and refugee peoples, it is clear that evil has an ubiquitous presence in European and third countries' migrant camps and centers. Though immensely personal and deeply intimate, these testimonies denounce an unequivocal pattern of racism, white supremacy, xenophobia, sexism, and homophobia. Second, the cumulative accounts of such a degrading treatment of those wishing to find refuge in our shores and amongst our communities can only be explained by the complete dehumanization of migrants. It is the denial of their humanity and dignity that translates into a complete disregard for their rights. As Hannah Arendt put it, and it seems only appropriate to invoke her memory in a Berlin session, we're confronted with the banality of evil. We're confronted with people who go home to be loving parents and yet behave in the most appalling manner in patrol vessels, at border controls, at camps, at detention centers, at medical facilities. The third point these cumulative testimonies make evident is the need to connect the macro and the micro levels, how they feed off each other in the most disturbing way to cause harm to those that need our protection the most. At the macro level, the EU regime of treating migrants as problems, threats, criminals, invaders trickles down to the individual, to those dealing directly with migrants on a daily basis, engaging in cruelties and a deeply inhumane treatment as if their conditions were a reason for punishment. Individual behavior, in turn, supports rather than challenges the system set up to keep migrants at bay. Deliberate policies not to save lives at the EU level, such as withdrawing rescue patrols, blocking humanitarian aid, ignoring requests for rescue, expectedly lead to shocking mistreatment of migrants and refugees, be it at the hands of European states themselves or the third countries with which they cooperate in the Mediterranean. Individual behavior, in turn, supports rather than challenges the system set up to keep migrants at bay. From those directly involved in harming migrants, to those voting for far-right parties running on anti-immigration platforms, to those turning a blind eye to what happens at their doorstep. A system rooted in externalization, securitization, militarization, and criminalization can only produce closure, indifference, heartlessness, normalization of people's suffering, and ultimately repression and murder. Living in highly precarious and often dangerous conditions from the center to the periphery of Europe, migrants are left unprotected and dispossessed, whilst Europe continues to claim its commitment to values such as freedom, equality, and human rights. This Berlin session, as the previous ones, confirms the appalling portrait of Europe as a host continent that previous PPT sessions had already revealed. The picture drawn of Germany only helps shedding a very necessary light on its own prominent role in this appalling scenario. Among the EU members, the Federal Republic of Germany has taken in the largest overall number of asylum seekers and refugees, projecting an image of humanitarian concern. Yet, despite its image of a country welcoming of refugees, these accounts show Germany as a complete hardliner, as one of our jury members, Sarah Lincoln, mentioned in the session. Legal restrictions have followed in response to the so-called refugee influx of 2015, when larger numbers of asylum seekers were able to make their way to European member states, with Germany a favored destination for many. All changes basically sought to make Germany less attractive as a destination for asylum seekers by rendering the prospects of achieving protection less likely, reducing family reunification, facilitating deportation, and modifying differentiated protection statuses with differently graded rights and prospects to remain. At the same time, the German government has taken a prominent role in advancing European border protection and securitization, and in externalizing migration control by seeking contractual agreements with third countries.
Perdón, Teresa, más despacio.
Sorry.
Más despacio, por favor.
All this in order to stop unwanted migrants from reaching European territory. Beyond refugee migration, it has to be noted that German governments have only quite recently accepted that Germany is an immigration country. Naturalization of foreigners is still difficult, and there's hostility and racism on a daily basis, structural and institutional. The electoral successes of the extreme right-wing party, Alternative for Germany, based on an anti-immigration agenda, is a reason for deep concern. As the various testimonies highlighted, Germany is a crucial part of this system of closing Europe on itself at the expense of its own values and principles. Its extensive role needs, therefore, to be exposed and resisted. The PPT is honored to join hands with those on the ground, survivors and activists, who continue to struggle for a better world where migrants are treated with the dignity, care, and compassion they deserve. Apologies to the translators for speeding a bit. Thank you.
Gracias, Teresa, por tu comentario tan concreto e incisivo. Voy a dar la palabra a Philippe Texier, presidente del tribunal, que nos va a hablar de las responsabilidades reconocidas por el jurado según el derecho existente y también según la jurisprudencia desarrollada por el tribunal a lo largo de esta sesión. Gracias, Philippe. Tienes pocos minutos.
Yo sé. Voy a hablar en español. A lo largo de más de 3 años de sesiones, desde 2017 hasta la sesión de Berlín, han aparecido evidencias idénticas tanto en las instituciones de cada uno de los estados como en las instituciones europeas, de la Unión Europea. Primero, una acumulación de violaciones graves de todos los derechos humanos, tanto civiles y políticos como derecho a la vida, a la dignidad, como los derechos económicos, sociales y culturales, derecho a la salud, al trabajo, a la educación. Este conjunto de violaciones se dio en un contexto de total impunidad de los responsables y de políticas de represión o de criminalización de los actores sociales que manifiestan su solidaridad con los migrantes. El derecho de migrar, reconocido en varias convenciones internacionales y en particular en la Declaración Universal y en el Pacto de Derechos Civiles y Políticos, es decir, el derecho de ir y venir y de vivir en el país que escogió, contemplado en el artículo 12.2 del Pacto de Derechos Civiles y Políticos, es negado, como es negada la existencia misma y la identidad de un pueblo de migrantes. Esta situación de violaciones sistemáticas de los derechos humanos del pueblo de los migrantes se asimila a una verdadera crímenes contra la humanidad que pueden definirse como crímenes sistémicas o crímenes de sistema, en la medida en que no son siempre imputables a un autor específico. Esta situación dramática ha empeorado en estos últimos años y la tendencia en Alemania, como en Inglaterra, como en Francia, como en varios países, es de instaurar un clima de hostilidad contra la población migrante que alimenta fenómenos de racismo y utilización de métodos violentos para las fuerzas de orden. Un último ejemplo en París hace unos días del desalojo violento de un campamento de migrantes en la Plaza de la République sin proposición de ninguna vivienda decente. Un conjunto de elementos contribuye a la comisión de estos crímenes sistémicos, como que facilita la estigmatización de los migrantes, su expulsión del territorio, acuerdos informales entre estados o entre la Unión Europea y ciertos estados, el ejemplo del acuerdo con la Turquía, para mantener migrantes en su territorio en cambio de ayudas económicas, directivas y reglamentos europeos, externalización administrativa del tratamiento del asilo, para mantener los migrantes y los que piden asilo lo más lejos posible de la frontera europea. Las conductas que tienden a impedir el salvamento en mar, cerrando los puertos, bloqueando las naves de las ONG, son ilegales, pero reivindicadas como políticas públicas por ciertos estados. Lo que los estados llaman la crisis de los migrantes es en realidad una crisis de la Unión Europea. Los estados de un lado proclaman la universalidad, indivisibilidad, interdependencia de los derechos humanos, y de otro contradicen esta proclamación ignorando o violando los derechos de los migrantes y violando así varias convenciones internacionales o regionales que han ratificado. En nombre de la soberanía de los estados, los migrantes son considerados como intrusos y el deber de acoger, corolario del derecho de emigrar, se vuelve en los países europeos en el derecho de expulsar. Las políticas de los estados no prevén ninguna vía legal y segura de acoger los migrantes. Está claro que la finalidad de la política de los estados y de la Unión Europea es el bloqueo de la migración. El término de necropolítica puede aplicarse a la política, un minuto, de la Unión Europea, que viola los derechos de la no devolución y lleve a expulsiones expeditivas en los aeropuertos o condiciones concentracionales de retención en los campos, a la referencia injustificada a nociones pseudo-jurídicas como la noción de países terceros seguros, para tratar de justificar la no admisión a la frontera, sanciones injustificadas contra los transportadores, encarcelación de personas sin base jurídica, militarización del proceso de externalización. En conclusión, se puede afirmar que la Unión Europea y los estados que la componen son cómplices de crímenes contra la humanidad, muertos en el Mediterráneo o en el desierto, torturas, esclavitud, y son también culpables de violaciones de los derechos económicos, en particular a la salud, a la educación, al trabajo, a un nivel de vida digna. También han violado los derechos de los defensores de derechos humanos con sus políticas de criminalización de sus acciones, de ayuda a los migrantes. Europa, si continúa su actual política, puede no ser ya la Europa civil de la solidaridad, de las garantías de igualdad, de los derechos humanos, de la dignidad de las personas contemplada en las constituciones de sus países miembros y la Carta de los Derechos Fundamentales de la Unión Europea, sino transformarse en una Europa de muros, de alambres de púas, de desigualdades, de conflictos y de intolerancia racial. Perdón por el tiempo.
Gracias, Philip. Lamentablemente esta es mi tarea.
Sí, yo sé.
De controlar el tiempo. Y doy rápidamente la palabra a Luciana Castellina, que nos va a hablar de la parte de las recomendaciones reconocidas por el tribunal. Luciana, unmute the microphone.
I'm sorry, it has to up and down and not open. I just wanted to say that we that listening to this trial, which is something I did for many, many years in many, many occasions, I am thinking that the problem of migrants is very different from all the issues we have been facing with the other tribunal or other trial, because when we have been discussing dictatorship in one country or in another, we have been discussing about the rights of people to have their own national freedom and so on. We have been always discussing of something which could come to an end. And in this case, instead, there is not visible end. We can fight against all what is made against migrants, all the horrible things we have been listening. But the issue, there is no way to think, how can we put an end to the phenomenon of migrants? And I think we have to keep this in mind, because this work we have been doing now with this sentence and with this discussion and with this judgment has to be the precondition to push people to think, what is migration in our era, in our time? Why do we have people which are moving and moving and more and more and more from one country to another and from the south to the north? And our work has to be to let people think, a civil society, to reflect, to think that there is something totally irrational, because we may have even worse police and treatment and racism and so on. They will never put an end to migration, because migration is going to go on, because we know very well that you cannot have a world in which capital travels free from one part and the other of the world, and human beings cannot. And we also know why human beings are forced to leave their own country. So I think that we have to do a lot of work when the judgment comes. Our duty is to let people know what we have been saying. And our power depends from us, not from the police. We will not have the police who is going to implement our judgment, of course. But we will have our work in trying to let people understand what's going on. But that we have also to start pushing people to think that it is to the migration itself which we would have to put an end. Not to migration, to illegal migration. That the aim and the goal must be that migration must become legal. That they have the right, as people have, when they have money in their pockets, they can go whenever they want and they can cross all the possible borders. So that is even a major issue. It's a very special judgment, this one, different from all the others. And because we want to remove the phenomenon itself, the problem itself, we want, and that is our goal, strategic goal, is to say people should be allowed to go. And not only, but we will have more and more migrants because we Europeans are migrants within Europe. There is very few of us who don't have been saying we go work in France and another day in Sweden and so on. So the new kind of citizen is a nomad. It's not somebody who is going to stay in his own country. And this is a characteristic of the new era. And we have to facilitate this as much as we can. So we have a lot of work to do in order to let this judgment know wherever we can and with all the means and in each of our country how we can, but also open a discussion on the future, on the long term. I think people have to start thinking that it is no way possible and it is not legally, morally legal to prevent people to move nowadays. So I'm sorry to talk about this, but you know, after you have heard also many horrible things done to the migrants, you start thinking that it's the migration itself, that it's traveling around across the world, which cannot be considered a sin. It has to be legalized. And that has to be, I'm sorry, I tell you, if I'm talking about a long-term goal, which is not the duty of this tribunal, but this tribunal and this judgment and this long process we have doing from Barcelona to Palermo to Paris to London and now to Berlin should help to start thinking that we have a new step. Well, that's what I think has to be our duty now. But this judgment will help, I think, very much because we are coming from the center of Europe. We are in Berlin. Germany has a role, very important in Europe and in the world. And so this judgment has a special value. And possibly Berlin is the place where we can start this rethinking of the whole problem.
Muchas gracias, Luciana, por este comentario tan oportuno. Y formalmente hemos terminado esta parte de presentación, pero como veo que Domenico Gallo está aquí, le quiero preguntar si quiere añadir algo o si para él está bien como lo que se ha dicho, si tiene algo que añadir. Y además, como veo que en el chat hay una persona que estaba preguntando sobre la posibilidad de hacer preguntas al jurado, quiero aclarar que sí hay posibilidad de hacer preguntas y de escribirlas en el chat, y en la parte final del evento de hoy se van a recolectar todas las preguntas, a seleccionar las más relevantes. Y se pueden, y Brennan, que va a moderar la última parte, se va a ocupar se encargará de transmitir las preguntas al secretario general del tribunal, que también estará presente en la parte final. Y le pido a Domenico si quiere algunos minutos de no. ¿No? ¿Vale? Entonces terminado. Gracias, Domenico. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Y terminamos oficialmente esta parte, que quiero agradecer a los movimientos y a las realidades sociales que han participado en esta sesión, y un agradecimiento especial también a los jueces que han trabajado muchísimo en las últimas semanas en estos tiempos tan difíciles de colectar secciones de sentencias, con la dificultad de toda la comunicación que hay en el tiempo que estamos viviendo. Muchas gracias a todos, y no sé quién va a tomar ahora no sé si Carlota o Susanne.
Vielen Dank. Ja, ich würde an Susanne und Julia überleiten, wenn ihr bereit seid.
Ja, hallo.
Oh, sorry, in English. Ja, danke.
Ja, ich rede jetzt in Deutsch, wobei die nächste Präsentation wird noch kurz auf Englisch sein. Ansonsten ist dieser Blog in Deutsch hauptsächlich. Ich bin Susanne Dürr, ich arbeite für die IPPNW. Ja, und jetzt in diesem Abschnitt wollen wir einmal einen Kommentar von dem Bündnis des Berliner Vorbereitungsteams präsentieren, und dann wird es noch zwei Darstellungen von aktuellen Herausforderungen, die Gruppen, die bei uns mitarbeiten, derzeit beschäftigen, werden dargestellt werden. Ich würde jetzt gerne das Wort an Julia Türtscher übergeben, die unser Dankeschön aussprechen wird und das Kommentar zum Urteil.
Hello, everyone. I'm speaking in English. So my name is Julia, and I'm part of the coalition of co-conveners who organized a session in Berlin that took place in October. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of the entire team, organizing team. We would like to start, as Simona also just did, with expressing how glad we are that the judgment could be presented today, and to thank all the people who were involved. So we would like to thank once again all the witnesses who gave testimony. They are at the heart of the tribunal. And we would also like to thank the jurors for hearing all the different cases and for finding such precise words in their verdict, naming the existing injustices as well as causes and responsibilities. And last but not least, we would like to thank everyone who supported and took part in the organization of the Berlin hearing. It would not have been possible to carry out the event without you. And yeah, as I said, we are very glad that the judgment could be presented today, because despite all the difficult circumstances we are facing, today here in Germany, we experienced the beginning of another phase of lockdown. And when we look back to the end of October, we are very glad that it was possible to follow through with our hybrid format just before meetings like that were not possible anymore. When we started organizing the 5th hearing of the 45th session of the Permanent People's Tribunal, we knew that the human right to health is central, since life is the vital basis for all human dignity, and it is indispensable for the exercise of all other human rights. It is therefore that the right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health is recognized in numerous human rights treaties and other sources of law. However, when we decided for our focus, we did not expect the topicality it has become within the last year. The COVID crisis has evermore shown the bitter inequalities that exist in our world. The Berlin hearing has shown how the human right to health is denied to refugee and migrant people in Germany and the European Union on a regular basis. Numerous examples were presented to the jury, describing the horrific conditions under which migrant and refugee people are forced to live across Europe. Not only are people encamped on Greek islands under inhumane conditions, but they are also excluded from healthcare services and forced to live in mass housing with grave consequences for physical and mental health in many other places in Europe. This applies especially for children, women, people with disabilities, and other vulnerable groups. The same holds true for the cruel deportation practices that do not even exempt people who are severely ill. As the jury stated, this violates many economic, social, and cultural rights of migrants and refugees in Europe. In particular, the right to health is severely unprotected. When speaking about healing and health, we must also talk about policies, as Effie Latsudi from Pikba Camp on Lesbos stated in her testimony in October. The crucial role that the European border regime plays for the situation on the Greek islands, in the central Mediterranean, through increasing criminalization of solidarity, and for migrant workers across Europe, has been put forward in many of the testimonies brought before the jury. Cross-cutting structural discrimination like racism aggravates physical and mental health condition of persons affected, as well as it keeps the healthcare sector from providing adequate care. The fact that health issues affect us all has hardly ever been as present in public attention across the globe in recent years as it is this year during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the past month also showed how important social determinants and healthcare policies are for the health condition on an individual level. This shows both the importance of the right to health for everyone, as well as the current, highly unequal distribution of this right. This has been the case already before the COVID-19 outbreak, and especially so for already vulnerable population groups as refugee and migrant people. We therefore demand urgently to grant equal access to healthcare for every person in Germany and in the member states of the European Union, because health is a human right.
Vielen Dank, Julia, für diesen Beitrag. Und als nächstes würde Ernst Ludwig Iskenius für die IPPNW kommen, aber ich bin mir gerade nicht sicher. Elu, bist du da? Okay, dann würde ich vorschlagen, wir ziehen den anderen Beitrag vor von Alain Charlemont. Und zwar wird er sprechen für die Coalition Internationale des Sans-Papiers Migrants. Alain, bist du soweit? Dich habe ich auf jeden Fall hier schon gesehen. Alain, wir können dich leider nicht hören. Hallo, Alain? Ich sehe dich hier auf dem Bildschirm, aber ich weiß nicht, kannst du uns hören? Alain, du bist stumm geschalten. Jetzt?
Hört ihr mich?
Ja, okay. Ich gebe
Hallo,
das Wort an dich ab.
hallo.
Hallo.
Könnt ihr mich hören?
Wir hören dich jetzt sehr gut. Ja, bitte fang an.
Ja, hört ihr mich alle?
Ja, bitte fang an.
Ja gut, ich wollte nur kurz berichten, dass von der Sans-Papiers, dass am Freitag und Samstag, kommender Freitag und Samstag, wird wieder eine Demo in Paris. Letzten Samstag war eine große Demo gegen die Gewalt der Polizei, die leider Gottes von der Polizei niedergeschlagen wurde. Wir waren alle da, Place de la République, und obwohl das von der Polizeipräfektur genehmigt worden ist, haben sie sofort zugeschlagen, Leute auch verhaftet. Darüber hinaus, das wird wieder am kommenden Samstag eine große Demonstration, die auch gegen die Gewalt der Polizei und auch für die Sans-Papiers, Papier pour tous, das heißt Papier für alles. Was wir erwartet von dem Tribunal ist auch, dass das Tribunal klare Wörter und klare Zeiten sagt, was wir von der Sans-Papiers bzw. die Leute da von dieser Polizeigewalt und dieser Polizeigewalt. Vorher hat die andere Kollegin aus Berlin auch richtig berichtet, dass diese Polizeigewalt überall, also nicht nur in Frankreich, aber auch in Deutschland, Italien, Spanien und so. Und unserer Meinung nach, wir haben eine Sitzung gehabt in Paris da mit Sissoko und so. Leider, Sissoko kann heute nicht dabei sein. Ja, wir haben also nachgedacht, zum Beispiel, das wäre gut, wenn die Tribunal, also ihr weißt, dass am 7. Januar eine Demonstration für den Tod von Origiallo. Der Origiallo habe ich letztes Mal auch darüber geredet. Und wir von der Sans-Papiers von Paris und Rom sind wir einverstanden, eine gemeinsame Demonstration von der deutschen Botschaft und zu machen und gegen diese Mord an Origiallo. Der Mord an Origiallo ist ein Symbol nicht nur für Deutschland, sondern für ganz Europa. Und deswegen unsere Bitten an diese Juristen, es wäre auch nicht schlecht, wenn man also von den Tribunalen da aufrufen würde, um diesen Tag etwas zu machen. Das kann sein durch diesen Lockdown, dass nichts möglich ist, von der Botschaft zu gehen oder irgendwas, aber irgendwas wie jetzt, etwas zu tun, glauben wir schon. Und deswegen sind wir sehr, letztes Mal haben wir auch darüber geredet, dass wäre nicht schlecht, wenn danach die Juristen da mit ihrem Urteil, dass dieser Urteil da im Bundestag etc. so gebracht worden wird. Also
Vielen Dank.
Ja, genau, das wäre für uns sehr wichtig, dass das gemacht wird zum Beispiel. Dass nicht nur so geredet wird, sondern dass etwas gemacht wird in die Richtung. Und dass wir weiter vielleicht in Zusammenarbeit, ich habe euch auch schon gesagt, dass wir, wenn alles gut ist, in April in Paris eine große Konferenz organisieren will von der Sans-Papiers, aber nicht nur die Sans-Papiers, sondern auch Asylbewerber, wo wir hier in Deutschland arbeiten, die werden auch dabei sein. Und es wäre auch nicht schlecht, wenn Leute von der Tribunal auch dabei sein können. Und eine bessere Koordination zu finden, dass nicht nur jede Länder etwas für sich tun, sondern dass wir gemeinsam versuchen, ja, gemeinsam auf die Straße zu gehen, zum Beispiel bis beim Europaparlament in Brüssel. Das ist auch unser Ziel. Und die Forderung auch weiter zu unterstützen. Und wenn wir da sind, nicht nur die Forderung zu übergeben, sondern da warten, dass dieses Parlament, wenn sie also tagen, dieses Parlament also unsere Forderung also nehmen für die Flüchtlinge und für die Sans-Papiers in ganz Europa. Und darüber hinaus wollen wir auch, wenn wir da sind mit diesen ganzen Leuten, dass wir auch da eine Sitting machen und warten, bis ein Ergebnis kommt.
Dankeschön, Alain.
Jo, bitte.
Dann wäre jetzt als nächstes Elo dran. Elo, klappt das jetzt? Alain, kannst du dich bitte wieder muten? Dankeschön. Elo, unten links ist der Anschalter für die...
Soll ich ausschalten?
Ja, Alarm bitte aus. Und
ja,
Elo,
mache ich. Warte mal kurz.
okay, ich höre jetzt.
Hallo, hört ihr mich?
Ja, Elo, super. Hallo.
Okay, hallo.
Dann übergebe ich das Wort an dich.
Ja, also ich sitze hier in einer Stadt, wo möglicherweise gerade in diesem Augenblick ein Flugzeug abhebt, was wieder wir wissen noch nicht mit wie vielen Leuten dort in Richtung Kabul unterwegs ist und Leute und Menschen, die bei uns Schutz gesucht haben, dort wieder abgeschoben werden. Wir wissen, wir haben noch keine Bestätigung dafür, aber es sprechen alle Indizien dafür. Wir hatten zahlreiche Proteste aus der Zivilgesellschaft, unter anderem eine Demonstration in München am letzten Samstag deswegen, um genau auf diese Doppelstandards während der Pandemiekrise nochmal hinzuweisen. Dieser Abschiebefluch zeigt nochmal deutlich, dass das Recht auf Sicherheit, das Recht auf Gesundheit und körperliche Unversehrtheit und das Recht auf Menschenwürde, die bei der zwangsweisen Rückführung mit dem Fit to Fly als Stichwort dort ständig verletzt wird. Das wird jetzt gerade hier in der Covid-19-Krise wieder einmal deutlich. Häufig wirken Ärzte und Ärztinnen bei diesen Zwangsmaßnahmen mit. Das ist nicht mit der ärztlichen Ethik vereinbar. Am 10. Dezember, also am Internationalen Tag der Menschenrechte, beschloss die Deutsche Innenministerkonferenz den generellen Abschiebestopp nach Syrien, wo heute noch Krieg ist, aufzuheben. Selbst wenn das zunächst ohne praktische Konsequenzen bleibt, versetzt dieser Beschluss viele der Betroffenen in Angst und Schrecken. Viele, besonders traumatisierte Menschen werden dadurch krank. Offensichtlich ist genau diese Verunsicherung beabsichtigt. Menschen sollen frühzeitig zermürbt werden und enttäuscht dann freiwillig das Land verlassen. Dieses Muster konnten wir in den letzten 20 Jahren immer wieder beobachten, sei es bei den bosnischen Geflüchteten, sei es bei den Menschen aus Kosovo, sei es bei den Schutzsuchenden aus Afghanistan oder den Kurden aus der Türkei. Selbst kurz vor dem Ausbruch des Bürgerkrieges in Syrien 2011 wurden noch Folteropfer in das Land, wo sie gefoltert worden sind, zurückgeschoben. Diese Politik, die auf Angst, Unsicherheit und der Botschaft, ihr seid hier nicht willkommen, muss endlich beendet werden. Sie ist auch ein Angriff auf unsere Basiswerte der Zivilgesellschaft. Sie ist also auch ein Angriff auf unsere eigene Würde. Danke.
Vielen Dank, Elu. Und an der Stelle möchte ich auch noch kurz hinweisen auf eine andere Gruppe, die aktiv gerade eine Person unterstützt, die nach Afghanistan abgeschoben wurde und deshalb jetzt nicht an einem Gerichtsverfahren teilhaben kann, welches durchgeführt wird aufgrund von rassistisch motivierter Gewalt, wo auch unter anderem Polizisten involviert waren. Ja, es wird jetzt eine Petition gleich in den Chat gepostet mit der Bitte an alle, die das unterstützen möchten, dass kann gerne getan werden. Und dieser Fall wurde auch vorgestellt vom Flüchtlingsrat Berlin während des Tribunals, deswegen auch nochmal der Hinweis daran. Dann vielen Dank und ich würde abgeben an die nächste Gruppe.
Thank you very much. I think this leads over to the second part of the Building the Global Pact of Solidarity. And if someone has a good idea how to speed up a little bit, then please come forward. And yeah, I'd like to hand over who's, I don't know, guiding us through this.
Yes, thank you, Carlota. So I will try to take over. Before we go to the next part, I would like to ask Miguel Orban, who is also in our, who is also joining us today. Miguel, please, can you give some perspectives from your position within the European Parliament? Yeah, you participate within different which are on development, human rights, and civil liberties. Yes, please, go ahead, Miguel.
Sí, muchas gracias. Lo primero, saludos desde Bruselas. Justamente tenemos plenaria parlamentaria estos días y agradecer a quien han hecho posible justamente que se tenga esta reunión en Berlín. Yo también pude estar en la sesión que tuvimos justamente en el Parlamento Europeo aquí en Bruselas. También pedir disculpas por la disponibilidad, no me podré quedar a toda la sesión, ya que acabo de ser padre una vez más y la verdad es que estamos un poco saturados en casa, pero no queríamos, lo hemos hablado con Brit y con los organizadores, queríamos estar también presentes aquí. De hecho, en estos meses de pandemia hemos podido, desde nuestro grupo parlamentario y yo mismo desde la Izquierda Europea, hemos podido visitar Lesbos y también Canarias, que yo creo que son dos puntos que ya se han mencionado justamente en varias intervenciones, ¿no? Dos extremos de la frontera sur de la Unión Europea que, sin embargo, tienen muchísimos elementos en común y eso es bastante preocupante, ¿no? Porque esto nos permite, esos elementos en común nos permiten confirmar cómo se traduce esa necropolítica europea que denuncia justamente este Tribunal Permanente de los Pueblos, porque hay un hilo que une las costas atlánticas de Canarias con el Egeo, un hilo de muerte, de negación de derechos, de militarización de fronteras y de xenofobia institucional. Una misma precariedad en lo improvisado del campamento, por ejemplo, de Arguineguín en Canarias, con la improvisación del nuevo campo de Moria en Karatepe, a pesar de que hay supuestamente 5 años de diferencia entre una mal llamada crisis migratoria y otra. Pero es que esa improvisación construida realmente lo que da es una imagen de excepcionalidad, porque yo creo que es muy importante además ver ese modelo pendular que hemos visto en las cuestiones migratorias y cómo ahora que vuelve a estar el foco en Canarias, cómo realmente empezó en Canarias en 2006, cuando un gobierno, otra vez socialista como el de ahora, pidió ayuda a la Unión Europea para afrontar la llegada de migrantes, y Frontex desplegó por primera vez la primera operación de su historia, y se dio un paso fundamental en la construcción de la Europa Fortaleza, además con la externalización de fronteras que significaron los memorándum de entendimiento, ¿no? No debería de extrañarnos ver en Moria, en Lesbos, 5 años después, las mismas imágenes que estamos viendo también en Canarias justamente estas semanas, ¿no? Porque, como decía, la construcción de una situación de desborde es en cierta medida una condición necesaria para justificar la excepcionalidad de derechos. El estado de excepción permanente como marco jurídico de facto que permite la violación sistemática de los derechos humanos en suelo europeo. Y lejos de cambiar, todo esto en cierta medida se está convirtiendo en la norma. Al menos la Unión Europea ya no nos regala bonitas palabras cargadas de solidaridad para luego hacer justo lo contrario. Y me estoy refiriendo al nuevo pacto migratorio, ¿no? Y digo supuesto nuevo pacto, ¿no? Porque en cierta medida no tiene nada de nuevo, porque básicamente convierte en norma las malas prácticas de necropolítica y de violación de derechos humanos que llevamos viendo en los últimos años de la construcción de la Europa Fortaleza, y denunciadas justamente por este tribunal. Y tampoco creo que sea un pacto, porque realmente es la asunción definitiva de la agenda xenófoba de la extrema derecha y del grupo de Visegrado por parte del resto de los Estados miembros y de las fuerzas del extremo centro que son mayoritarias en el arco parlamentario también del Parlamento Europeo. Una auténtica lepenización acelerada de la política europea y, por supuesto, tampoco tiene nada de migración y asilo, porque principalmente su objetivo es negar el derecho humano a migrar, securizando y externalizando para ello las fronteras. Yo creo que es fundamental entender cómo se articula y cómo podemos construir ante esta necropolítica y ante los desafíos que se están dando, cómo podemos articular una agenda común europea que lo enfrente, y yo creo que por eso necesitamos herramientas como el Tribunal Permanente de los Pueblos y como estas sesiones para poder tener una agenda de movilización y como decía un compañero, decía que iban a venir a manifestarse al Parlamento Europeo. Yo creo que habría que desalojarlo prácticamente, más que manifestarse o sentarse en la puerta, porque es una auténtica vergüenza, y da igual que nos sentemos a la puerta o que desde dentro de la plenaria gritemos contra esta política, contra esta necropolítica, porque yo creo que lo fundamental es empezar a moverle las sillas por abajo, porque esto es una auténtica vergüenza que pone en tela de juicio claramente el propio proyecto europeo. Y yo creo que hay que empezar a hablar en estos términos, de cuestionar el propio proyecto político europeo que está haciendo de la necropolítica un elemento básico de su constitución. Y nada, yo no quería robarles más tiempo, además vamos con muy poco tiempo, y como les decía, tengo a un niño por aquí gritando y llorando, no sé si le habrán escuchado y disculpen. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Miguel, and thank you very much for that advocacy to as well go inside. And we are, and hopefully we will be able to do that together with the PPT on the next coming, maybe in 2021 and the first part of the year, and discuss further the conversation within the premises of the European Parliament. So looking forward to that. And maybe that's also a good bridge for, thank you very much. And again, congratulations with the birth of your child, and yeah, hopefully all will go well. So I think your advocacy on really demanding the necropolitics to end within the EU migration policy is precisely what where we can get more effort to advocate for. And I was thinking in introducing the global on building the global pact, or this part of the program, and hearing also the plea or the recommendation of Luciana. I think indeed that this specific judgments or the testimonies that were given by the migrants themselves and the indictments that we have created is actually a very important data or information that eventually will allow us to create a critical theory around necropolitics, where the violation of migrants and refugees is placed within the framework of necropolitics and put a legitimate claim of jurisdiction and the truth about the violations that migrants and refugees are experiencing. And also really to inquire about epistemology concerns on the theoretization that the EU has that is actually still is from the colonial period on migrants and refugees as others, or the colonized as the others. I think that will help us on further strategizing as a movement, but also it will give empowerment on creating educational materials for migrants themselves, as migrants actually are very much the fear or the narrative around migration policy also are also being internalized and imagine themselves also as criminals or in that way. So the theories, as Luciana was saying, I think that's the next challenge, that's the next step of these hearings, how we can concretize this theory and put the violations within the frame of necropolitics. And maybe I want to cite a bit of Akile Mbembe from Cameroon, as he said that he says that necropolitics as a way of analyzing the contemporary forms of subjugation of life to the power of death forces somebody to remain in the different states of being located between life and social death, where the migrants and refugees are not being accepted as a fully human within our case, and also in civil death by losing almost all the civil rights. I think that is the very next level that where we have to go to as a movement. That's one, the theory, the creation of theory within the framework of necropolitics. And the other is, of course, the building of the solidarity, which was introduced also on the video on how can we build solidarity around the struggles that we are all already doing, where the migrants as protagonists can also put forward their initiatives and their recommendations around what is the reality that they are experiencing. And yeah, so this part too is precisely on that, continuing, of course, on what was shared already on what is happening in Berlin regarding regimes of deportation and the undocumented migrants. I think we have also one video within this part where also the movement of sans-papiers in France will be showing, and the workers, the world of work among the workers as domestic workers in London and agricultural workers in Almeria. And then Flori will give some campaigns that they are doing or the situation that is happening around the dangerous journeys that migrants and refugees are experiencing. And eventually our call, how can it also be globalized? Until now, that will be given by Carlos Marentes from La Villa Campesina. So Mario, can I ask you to share the video of Saint-Pierre from France? Our call, how can it also be globalized?
Monsieur.
Until now, that will be given by Carlos Marentes from La Villa Campesina. So Mario, can I ask you to share the video of Saint-Pierre from France?
Monsieur le Président, nous marchons.
Our call, how can it also be globalized?
Monsieur,
until now, that will be given by Carlos
Marentes
from La
ont
Villa
traversé ce
Campesina.
pays où nous vivons.
So,
venus du
Mario,
sud, du nord, de l'est et de l'ouest, appuyés par la solidarité des habitantes et habitants sur les ronds-points, les routes, les places de nos villages, les quartiers de nos villes. Monsieur, et nous serons Monsieur le Président à Paris. Nous marchons le samedi des 4 coins du pays. Monsieur, nous marchons de toutes les villes du pays, plusieurs centaines d'entre nous, ensemble, sans papier, dans des écoles où nous envoyons traverser ce pays, où nous vivons, où nous travaillons, venus du sud, du nord, de l'est et de l'ouest, marcheront en hommage à solidarité des habitants, des hommes et femmes sur les ronds-points, tués par centaines, les places de nos villages, les quartiers de nos villes. Monsieur, et nous serons Monsieur le Président à Paris. Nous marchons le samedi
how can it also be globalized?
Monsieur, until
now, that will be given by Carlos.
Sans papier, dans des écoles où nous envoyons traverser ce pays, où nous vivons, où nous travaillons, venus du sud, du nord, de l'est et de l'ouest, solidarité des habitants, femmes sur les syndicats, tués par familles, places de amis et amis, quartiers de nos villes, nos voisins et voisines, et nous serons Monsieur le Président à Paris. Nous marchons le samedi Monsieur,
until now, that will be given by Carlos.
Sans papier, dans des écoles où nous envoyons traverser ce pays, où nous vivons, où nous travaillons, que la question des moyens n'était pas le problème. Nous marchons pour gagner l'égalité. Nous vivons ici, ensemble, avec ou sans papier. Et vous savez que l'absence de droits pour les sans-papiers et la précarité pour les demandeurs d'asile gangrènent toute la société, favorisent le racisme, légitiment les contrôles aux faciès et toutes les inégalités et attaques sociales. Nous marchons. Monsieur le Président, nous marchons. Des 4 coins du pays, pour l'égalité, nous marchons. Plusieurs centaines d'entre nous, sans papier en tête, vont traverser ce pays où nous vivons, venus du sud, du nord, de l'est et de l'ouest, appuyés par la solidarité des habitantes et habitants sur les ronds-points, les routes, les places de nos villages, les quartiers de nos villes. Et nous serons des dizaines de milliers à Paris, à leur arrivée, le samedi 17 octobre, pour aller vers le palais de l'Élysée. De toutes les villes du pays et des quartiers où nous vivons, ensemble, des écoles où nous envoyons nos enfants, des lieux où nous travaillons, nous allons marcher. Nous marcherons en hommage à nos anciens et anciennes, ces hommes et femmes venus d'Algérie, tués par centaines par la police un 17 octobre 1961, alors qu'ils et elles marchaient pour la liberté. Nous marcherons en hommage à nos milliers de frères et sœurs qui meurent chaque année sur les routes de la migration, alors qu'ils et elles marchent avec l'espoir d'une vie meilleure et plus juste. Sans papier en tête, nous marcherons avec nos centaines de collectifs de solidarité et de lutte, nos associations et nos syndicats, nos familles, nos amis et amies, nos voisins et voisines, nos collègues pour la régularisation de tous les sans-papiers. Monsieur le Président, nous ne marchons pas pour demander un cadeau ou implorer votre générosité. Nous savions depuis longtemps, avant même les milliards que vous distribuez actuellement, que la question des moyens n'était pas le problème. Nous marchons pour gagner l'égalité. Nous vivons ici, ensemble, avec ou sans papier. Et vous savez que l'absence de droits pour les sans-papiers et la précarité pour les demandeurs d'asile gangrènent toute la société, favorisent le racisme, légitiment les contrôles aux faciès et toutes les inégalités et attaques sociales. Nous marchons pour l'avenir. En ces temps de crise sanitaire où vous faites appel à la responsabilité de chacune et chacun, nous prenons les nôtres en marchant dans le respect des règles sanitaires. Votre responsabilité est de fermer les centres de rétention, donner accès à des logements décents pour toutes et tous les sans-abri et les mal logés, et garantir les droits qui permettent d'assurer la protection de toutes et tous, au travail comme dans la vie quotidienne, et l'accès égal à la santé. Nous marchons pour une société plus sûre pour toutes et tous. Permettez-nous de vous rappeler que, pendant la crise sanitaire, de nombreux et nombreuses sans-papiers font partie des premières lignes, corvéables à merci et surexploités, sans droit et ou perdant leur emploi sans chômage partiel. Et nous marchons avec et pour cette jeunesse, ce futur que vous laissez à la rue, en proie à tous les trafics, ou ces jeunes pour lesquels reconnaissance de minorité veut trop souvent dire solitude dans des chambres d'hôtel insalubres, sans accès à l'école, attendant leur majorité pour être remis à la rue et aller grossir les rangs des sans-papiers. Alors, Monsieur le Président, nous serons à votre porte le 17 octobre. Nous espérons qu'elle sera ouverte. Monsieur le Président, nous voulons l'égalité. Simplement l'égalité. Et vous? En l'attente de votre réponse, veuillez recevoir, Monsieur le Président, l'expression de toute notre détermination à lutter pour une société plus sûre, plus juste et égale.
I think there were some technical problems with the video. Kind of first we had the voice looping and then the video itself. Thank you. Anyway, can I hand over again?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah. And can we just have a very sharp look on the watch as it's 7:45 already, and I think we have 4 more inputs. Maybe keep it into a few minutes. So that we can maybe at 8 p.m. or something come to wrap up and have maybe a few questions and then, discuss how we proceed or have a little onward look.
Okay, we have the next speaker will be Khadija from the domestic workers group in England. Waling Khadija, please go ahead. And indeed, as Carlotta mentioned, please try to be succinct in your speech. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Khadija. I'm from Morocco. I would like to share 2 points today about. First one is about the difficulties of migrant domestic workers. And the second one is about what we need to do in the future and what are our requests. So domestic work suffers from a double penalty which places the people who earned a living from a double disadvantage. The first of these comes from the fact that is work, and this in the sense that in part of world where things have to be done and human beings are able to continue to live. But in this world, the bulk of this work is undertaken by people who needs to earn a wage, and who often have the little choice in doing the work they end up doing. The second disadvantage comes from the fact that the work domestic workers do is often not recognized as being a part of this world of work that is essential for life to go on. It is seen as a woman's work that is marginal and does not command the respect of people who are real workers. In the world of the so-called real work, the workers have been able to exercise a power which comes from the fact that they have been recognized as being essential. This power means they can form a trade union and go to the people who employed them to demand the higher wages and better working conditions. They are still exploited by the employing class, but they can push back and get a higher price for their labor. But the domestic workers fund it's much more difficult to assert herself against the power of her employer. Her workplace is a private home, and she remains there for days and end without the opportunity to talk and to share experience with others who are like her. In most cases, though not always, she is a woman in a world where women are routinely bullied and demeaned. Increasingly, she is also a migrant, on one of the people whose status is already low in the world and who has looked for a job and opportunities wherever she can find them. Although many domestic workers are highly skilled in their own country, but their salary is so low that they need to go abroad and work below their skills and training.
But across the... May I ask you to go to conclusion? I'm sorry. Okay. I know.
Yeah. But across the world, we find the domestic workers are finding way to resist their double disadvantage among themselves. Are they forging links to organize the provide multi and in support? For this improved position, they are able to look wider and so see who support them in their struggle or their rights. We are now at the point where supporters have been identified, and this includes the faith community in which we grow up, which then this includes the faith, and we are able to link with individuals who can help us with legal advice. Lessons improve the knowledge of the language of the community, of the country where we work and where things go really very well. Trade unions who are prepared to recognize that are indeed workers. In our main fight is to restore the domestic workers visa, which was taken away from us in 2012 by the government that was building a hostile environment for all migrants people. We want to live without the fear of being arrested and deported because the authorities consider our paper is no longer in order. We must not forget what has happened in the Windrush scandal. Some of those people who have every right to live and work in the UK are still being denied their rights and even being deported. So we want, in other words, for all migrants and the refugees to be given a legal status in this country and to be recognized as workers and respected as human beings with the rights which all other workers have been in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khadija. Thank you very much for making that far more shorter. Thank you. May I ask someone from SOCSAT to give a small summary about the situation of workers, agricultural workers in Almería?
Sí. Sí, hola. Buenas tardes. En nombre del Sindicato de Obreros del Campo, quería mostrar, bueno, el testimonio que tenemos tanto en Almería como en Huelva. Sí, estoy hablando del sur del Estado español, Andalucía. En estas dos provincias se concentra el 90% de toda la inmigración que llega al sur de España. Sí, en Almería tenemos aproximadamente 150.000 personas que emigran de manera casi permanente y en Huelva unas 100.000 personas que emigran durante 4-5 meses al año. En Huelva el fruto rojo y en Almería los invernaderos, sí, los plásticos, aunque plástico hay en Almería y en Huelva. Todos los cultivos están debajo de plástico. La situación que se da en estos dos territorios es alarmante. Sí, Europa no puede huir de lo que pasa en un territorio europeo, porque ante la miseria, ante el abuso, ante el hambre, ante todos los atropellos laborales, Europa tiene que actuar. Nosotros como sindicato, obreros del campo, llevamos mucho tiempo trabajando y asesorando a todos los inmigrantes que llegan en dos modalidades. Los contratos que llegan por una cuestión económica y contratos en origen, y los contratos que llegan, o mejor dicho, los inmigrantes que llegan por el hambre, en las pateras, sin documentación, sin papeles. Ahí se sitúan en Almería y en Huelva. Los abusos son terroríficos. No pagan los convenios, no tienen vivienda, no le dan de alta en la seguridad social. Hay acoso laboral, hay acoso sexual, muchos acosos sexuales. Porque, sobre todo en Huelva, donde la mano de obra es mujer, femenina. Sí, toda la mano de obra que llega a Huelva, el 90% de toda la mano de obra es mujer, que viene de Europa del Este y también de la parte de África, sobre todo de Marruecos. Contrato en origen de Marruecos, 19.000 contratos. Todos marroquinas, como se le llama en Huelva, mujeres trabajadoras de Marruecos, que tienen que tener entre 25 y 40 años. Entre 25 y 40 años, porque exigen también una cierta edad, que tengan hijos, que tengan familia en Marruecos, para que después tengan que volver otra vez y no quedarse en el Estado español, en Andalucía. Digo que el sindicato...
Diego, can I ask you to come to your, to the points, in a sense of make a summary? Sorry for that.
Sí. Conclusiones. Nosotros estamos planteando una serie de medidas importantes. Una primera medida que habría que aplicar, y es un cuerpo especial de inspectores que vayan al campo y vean la realidad. Segundo, que no haya ningún contrato a trabajadores y trabajadoras del lugar que sea a más de 100 kilómetros de distancia que no tenga consigo la vivienda, el alojamiento. Tercero, elecciones sindicales, porque en el campo no hay elecciones sindicales y los trabajadores no pueden tener representación. Que se considere delito penal el no cumplir los convenios colectivos. Delito penal. El empresario que no cumpla un convenio colectivo no es un conflicto laboral, sino penal, que pueda ir incluso a la cárcel. Quinto, que las ayudas de la PAC, de la política agraria comunitaria, cuando un empresario no cumple con los derechos laborales, la PAC no le llegue las ayudas económicas de Europa. Sexto, regularizar todos los inmigrantes que viven aquí y que están ya afincados en Andalucía. Regularizarlo para que puedan trabajar legalmente. Esas son las reivindicaciones. Y lo último es que el problema que tenemos en Andalucía no es un problema solamente de los andaluces, es un problema de Europa. Y tenemos que ser solidarios todos para actuar ante esa situación alarmante. Cuando escuche el grito de un hambriento, no huya. Es tu causa.
Thank you very much, Diego. Can I ask Flore to come forward. And Flori, can you, I'm sorry, also the question of going to your conclusion already before you start. I'm sorry, just.
It's fine. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. I think we all witnessed during this session the acceleration of the structural, systematic, and repeated crimes against migrant people, both on externalized borders, obviously, but also within the internal EU borders, as the Balkan case is blatantly demonstrating, with pushback chains and practice of torture in the very heart of Europe. So I think that now we are fully aware that we have all evidence that this lethal combination of deliberate policies not to save lives or to deter migrants persons are causing a surge of death. And the issue we're facing today is that the fact that this crime, this systematic, reiterated, repeated crime is ongoing. So hence it is even further scaling up, structuring itself within the very EU institution, within the EU agenda, within the EU rhetorics, within the EU culture. And this, I think, for us, it is very important that the jury decided to specify, to name the ongoing genocide in the qualification of facts in the indictment of Berlin. And thank you so much for this. We are thankful because not only it helps naming the crime, not only a crime against humanity, but also very much genocide against people, migrants, but also it raised the issue of how to fight this structurality, because as we all know, to dismantle such a structural crime by the fact that it's funded by our taxes, it is funded by hidden chain of commands within the EU institution, hidden bilateral agreements, and even increasing border militarization, is really raising the issue of how to really stop this mass murder. I already intervened on the issue, but we know that in the Mediterranean, there is a planned, intentional physical elimination of people who are attempting to cross by the combination, as I say, of politics of withdrawal of all European states' rescue assets, but also by blocking all humanitarian vessels. In the last months, I can tell you that only Open Arms, a Spanish NGO, could save lives, could resume its life-saving mission at sea, while all other NGOs were blocked because the European governments don't want to have witnesses of this ongoing genocide at sea. Even activists are criminalized, as we know. I can report to this assembly that in the case of Italy, we had even a very deadly practice of quarantining people, the people that Europe doesn't want to reach our shores, above quarantine ships where there have been cases of deaths and suicide. But now today we have had 150 Italian associations denouncing this practice and asking the government to stop this practice. While on other shores, as you're aware, there have been also the gathering during this session of all the evidence of the use of cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment as a means of deterring people. We can really say, I think, and it's new to be able to say it collectively, that the EU is using torture as a deterrent tool of migrants. And for all these reasons that I stated above, because of the real, the structural political nature of this crime, the fact that we're talking of bilateral agreements, EU Commission measures, and as I said, a diluted state responsibility, we think that the Permanent Tribunal, the Permanent People's Tribunal, is so far the only tribunal capable of, beyond this indictment, to continue highlighting this ongoing genocide. And we really call this, this tribunal to continue doing it in a participatory process in order to really, for us to find a means to stop this complete annihilation of people, both on a physical but also on a psychological level. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Flore. We are 8 o'clock. I would like to give Carlos Marentes some time. Is that still okay, Carlota? No, in relation to Carlos, how you see it. I mean, this is happening in Europe, but I can imagine. I mean, within your work with San Fronteras between Mexico and the U.S. border and other borders, same is happening. So, in your perspective, how can we expand, or how do you see building the global pact of solidarity?
Thank you. Compañeras y compañeros, it is with great honor and joy that I attend this very important event on the occasion of the verdict of the Berlin Permanent People's Tribunal and the signing of the Global Pact of Solidarity. I am very grateful for the invitation, and I'm glad to join compañeras and compañeros that I respect and admire for their tireless efforts in the defense of the human rights of all migrants and refugees. I'm glad to see my comrade Federico Pacheco, Jill, Britt, everybody from the Transnational Migrant Platform, and to see all of you, compañeras y compañeros. My commendation to the members of the Permanent People's Tribunal for their dedication and their remarkable work. Perhaps the judgment that we have received today can be used as a tool to uplift the cause of the human rights of all migrants and refugees, not only in Europe, but all over the world. This evening, I'm connecting from El Paso, Texas, right in the border of United States and Mexico. From my window facing south, I can see the landscape of the Mexican side. So I like to take this opportunity to offer you greetings from the migrant agriculture workers of the border region. Let me start by saying that these are terrible times for humanity. All over the world, we see and feel the suffering of people, and especially of the most marginalized and socially excluded in our societies. We see and hear about this destruction of families and communities, about people getting seriously ill without any assistance by the health systems that in most cases no longer exist because they were dismantled some time ago in the peak of the implementation of neoliberal policies by the states. We see every day the suffering of people, very serious economic hardships, high unemployment, and many workers fearful of contagion who are practically forced to work without the minimum basic measures to protect their health and safety. And the cruel exclusion from emergency relief programs to COVID-19 created by governments in the private sector. The abandonment of the eternally forgotten groups has been aggravated. There is much sorrow and pain in thousands of homes because the afflicted families cannot even wash over their disease or give them a dignified burial. In short, hardships overwhelm those below like never before. And of course, migrant and refugees continue to be the most disproportionately affected by this human crisis. All of us who are part of movements and efforts on behalf of their rights see and experience this every day. And not only that, it is also a crisis that has exposed the brutal and moral properties of capitalism. This has to be properly understood, otherwise we will not be able to find a way out of this crisis. In these times, we need the social movements to move proactively and decisively for the cause of the human rights of migrants and refugees. Therefore, this meeting is very important, especially in these times, because what we have in front of us is the worst human crisis in modern history. And this meeting is the combination of many others in the recent past, which have the same purpose. Just let me mention 3 of them. The first encounter on migration and wage workers in Ciudad Juarez, November 2017. The counter for a pact to build a pact of solidarity and unity in Marrakesh in December of 2018. And in more recent encounter for the to build a pact of global solidarity in Europe in past month of October. In this regard, all these events, that have been, happening for many years, indicates to us that we need to pass into the next stage of our efforts. This evening, I want to issue a call for everybody and all the social movements to sign and embrace the Pact of Solidarity for the rights of migrant and refugees peoples that was approved in October in response to the European Union Pact that continues to criminalize migrants and refugees for the mere fact of being migrants and refugees. All of us have the document. So I would like to reaffirm some of these contents, and more specifically, the last part that was highlighted in the video that we saw at the beginning. It is all, to us, a very important to have the hope that this pact will be adopted by all and everybody in Europe, and then that we follow by promoting the adoption all over the world to guide public opinion in favor of a wide mobilization by movements and societies for the defense of the rights of all migrants and refugees. So I'm sending you a message from the United States-Mexico border, one of the hotspots of COVID-19, where every day we see migrants and refugees and families dying and suffering, that you reaffirm in this meeting your commitment to embrace this pact of solidarity and to expand this pact of solidarity all over the world. That is very important, especially in these times where not only we need to speak about it, it's time to act, and to act decisively on behalf of all migrants and refugees. Muchas gracias, and I thank you for the opportunity to join this very important event.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for the encouragement and also calling people to sign and to support the Global Pact of Solidarity. I think I will bring the word back either to Carlota or to Brid. What is the decision? Actually, we are, I don't know, it also depends on the interpreters. As far as I know, there are no questions as well. So we were planning to have an open forum, but there are no questions, so that's good. So Carlota or Brid, what is the next?
I'd like Brid to maybe say something, sum up. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, what I would like to do, I have, by the way, yeah, thanks to everybody, and thanks for our interpreters to give us a little extension. I guess, you know, one of the realities in our world is this question about time, always bargaining in relation to time. So I have two questions. I have one question for Gianni Tognoni, who brought, you know, who has facilitated, worked with us, has come through these journeys with us. I would just like to ask Gianni, maybe in 3 minutes, to give us some indications where he thinks the PPT will go in this journey on the next steps, no? And my second question would be to a similar question to Federico in relation to the strategies that we want to adopt in making a reality of the Global Pact of Solidarity. I think Carlos, brought us to that point very well and very quickly. And so I hand it over to Gianni with the first question and to Federico with the second question. Then I think we can wind up.
Thanks, Brid. I think that it's very late and time is time, but I think that the main direction has been given by Luciana, saying that we have a common goal just to make possible something which at present appears incredible, not only impossible. We have really to imagine that there is a long-term struggle, which, however, must start and be permanent in order to obtain what also our colleague from the parliament says, the problem or the issue of the migrants as a people, as a subject of rights, is not even part of the agenda of the European Parliament. We have to introduce that in order to have this visibility. In that sense, I think that the first step or the first instrument is just to take the text of the conclusions of the tribunal, where you will find the expansion of many of the problems and the concrete recommendation, the texts by Domenico Gallo, Luciano, just to have these are kind of really agenda for a common work, to have a platform where we have concrete objective in order to maintain a pressure on the parliament. We have to organize events which could focus on different aspects of this struggle for the recognition of the right of migration, which is important as much as the control of the repression. So I think that it is important to have those things. The second point I think that would be really important would be just to see whether we could create concrete and to pressure on that, to have concrete alliance within the European Parliament and the national parliament in order to maintain the migrant issue visible and present, because so far everything is just canceled out by COVID and pure economic measures. Migrants have disappeared and they are in fact considered desaparecidos. They are there if they do not create problem. So I think that would be a critical importance to give us, to all of us, the main group, to have at least some common goals in order to have a pressure which is transformed in different initiatives. Third, I think that, again, I go back to what Luciana says, that we have really to create a different culture, language. I think that will be important to motivate the young people about also the problem of migration. They will have to struggle with the right of migrants, and the next generation of Europeans should know really that they have to create alliances with the young generation of migrants. These alliances do not exist so far, and there are some examples where they have been created, but I think that that would be a critical importance to create an alliance of the young generations in order to recognize themselves not only in the global world, but really as subject of the same future. And that needs also the creation of different languages which could really be shared, understood, adopted by the young people, because that is something which is very, very important. I think that is already too much time. Thanks for this opportunity of giving some conclusion.
And now can we ask Federico? Federico, por favor.
Castellina.
I think Federico is, there is no mic sign.
Does he have a mic?
Luciana is asking something. Press the button.
No, I was just thinking if he could not, at the end of his judgment, send a message to the foundations. In Germany, there is great richness of foundation. The Bohl Foundation, the Ebert Stiftung, the Rosa Luxemburg, and so on. And to send them a sort of challenge. We would love you, each of you, to think how in the long term will you solve the problem of mobility of humans. I would not love to call them migrants, the mobility of human beings across the world. How do you think it should be done? And ask them to think and to prepare papers. And then we may discuss all of them. And I think you spoke about the young generation. Why don't we make a sort of questionnaire and we try to distribute it in the schools, in the last classes of the middle school, and ask the young people, how do you think human beings should be mobile? I would love to leave apart the word migrant. Finish. Mobility of human beings. And that will be already, I think, a message. And to send this, to deliver it to all the organization of young people who are in the schools. In each country, there is some sort of organization, UNEF in France, and so on. And let young people to answer. Also trying to ask them their own life. I know that our young people travel across the world more and more. You find this Italian scientist speaking from Washington and a German speaking from South Africa and so on. How do they consider the necessity of establishing some sort of international citizenship, a double nationality? You are a citizen of your own country, but you also have some sort of international citizenship, because we have an enormous phenomenon of migration in Europe. Not only, you know that in Italy there are more Italian migrants than those who we receive. We are a country of first line. So this is a phenomenon which is growing all over. I think that would be interesting to have this sort of long time work, which is not specifically of the tribunal, but which the tribunal could sponsor.
Thank you very much, Luciana, for giving very practical challenges in indeed how we can do this intergenerational learning and relearning, and how we can make this a joint work. Because indeed, it looks like we're not just fighting for the planet, we're really fighting for humanity at this moment. And the question of how we want to live on the planet. I'm trying to connect with Federico. Is he here? He got caught actually.
No, he's not here.
So, sorry, just a moment. Everybody just hold for 2 moments. Yeah, I think he got a problem technically. That he's trying to reconnect.
Federico sempre che sia morto.
Yeah, but he's not in the waiting room. So I'm hearing a lot of WhatsApp pings, Britt, from you, but he doesn't seem to join us.
Well, then maybe since Federico has been sort of technically knocked out.
Oh no, now he's coming. Sorry, we can just maybe. I think we only have like really just 2 more minutes or something, because we need the interpreters to have their days done for today.
Well, I think Federico can do a very good job to summarize.
Perfect. He says he's joining. Could you maybe switch off the the beep, Brit?
Yes, sorry.
Now he should be here. Federico, can you talk? Yeah, so he has joined, but there's no sound. So I don't see a microphone. And thank you very much for Mr. Fischer to writing something in the German Ärzteblatt.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe we can use the time to ask the interpreters to quickly turn on the video so we can see you and give you a big applause for following the fast inputs and translating everything for us. Thank you very much to Koinosh and to Eloy. I'd love to see your faces if you're still there. Maybe a quick hi, then we can see your face pop up. Hi, Eli.
Okay.
Britt, do you think it's working, or
I'm not
do you
sure.
need someone else?
I could hear him, but so I don't know why you can't hear him in the.
So maybe Gianni, do you want to?
No, but,
no, if since Federico is not able to come, I think one of the main sort of contributions or messages that he wanted to bring was that this journey of the PPT, since we've been involved since 2017, has been an amazing journey of exchanging, of struggling, and of bringing the wisdom of migrant and refugees to our struggle for transformation and change, especially in Europe. And in the coming period, we foresee, the 3 or 4 fronts of struggle. One is continuing certain work with the Permanent People's Tribunal. The other is bringing the movements which Carlos talked about, this putting the question of the mobility of migrants and refugees and human beings on the calendar of the movements in Europe, and including in the parliaments. And the third area is really the looking forward to the European Social Forum on Migration, which will be taking place in March, as a moment where there can be a major exchange, which I think we feel very strongly about, in which we could develop joint strategies actually for dismantling this normalization of genocide, this normalization of necropolitics. So the instrument that we will certainly want to use strongly is the Global Pact on Solidarity. And we are very happy to announce this evening that already there are 500 organizations and who have signed on to this, including, of course, individuals. And the reception has been really great. And this includes several major social movements, but also many movements across different nationalities and also in different parts of the world from Asia and from Latin America. So we are very glad to announce that we will continue working with it. And as Carlos said, let's really make the appeal to bring this around the world, and maybe take up Luciana's last challenge and bring it to the schools as an instrument for discussion and for the shaping of the kinds of battles that we have up ahead. Thanks a lot to everybody, and thanks to our German hosts, and thanks to our interpreters especially, who keep us speaking to each other. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you for hosting.